Okay, picture this. It's 3 a.m., pouring rain, and you're trying to get a cab after a long flight. Ever, like, thought about how those drivers just kind of appear out of nowhere to, like, rescue you?
Right.
There's this unsung hero behind the scenes, the taxi controller.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny. Most of us just, like, hop into taxi without thinking twice. Just, like, put our destination in the app, and boom, car appears. Like
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah.
But that magic is actually a bunch of logistics and tech stuff and human ingenuity, all thanks to, you guessed it, taxi controllers. So for today's deep dive, we're going to RoleCatcher.com. It's this career platform, and they've got some really interesting info on this job that most people don't even know exists.
Heck so.
So buckle up as we look at taxi controllers and figure out what this job really is in our digital world.
You know what's interesting? Most people think a taxi controller just yells into a radio, like, destination, destination. But there's way more to it than that.
I bet. I'm already thinking it's more than just knowing all the streets.
Absolutely. Think of it less like knowing every street and more like conducting an orchestra, but with vehicles instead of instruments. You're coordinating a whole fleet of cars, each with their own route
Yeah.
and timeline and even like personality. And on top of that, you're dealing with all the tech. GPS, booking apps, dispatch software, all while making sure the drivers and passengers are safe.
Sounds like you got to juggle a lot. You know what surprised me when I was on RoleCatcher? They really emphasized skills beyond just like
Yeah.
knowing the city. They said 88% of taxi controller jobs need customer service skills.
Right. It's easy to forget. But behind all the apps and GPS dots are actual people. And sometimes those people, they're stressed or
Wow.
running late or just having a bad day. So taxi controllers are often the first person they talk to, whether it's the drivers or the passengers.
Right.
So being able to calm someone down or reassure them or just be friendly can really make all the difference.
For sure. We've all had those times where someone calm on the other end of the phone just totally saved the day. And speaking of skills you wouldn't expect, RoleCatcher mentioned that public safety knowledge is super important. Like 63% of jobs needed. What's that like on a day-to-day basis?
That's such a key part of the job that people often don't think about. Taxi controllers are like the eyes and ears of a city.
Oh, wow.
They might have to know how to deal with medical emergencies or help a driver navigate a road closure
Wow.
or even just notice a potential security risk and know what to do.
So they're not just like connecting rides. It's bigger than that. They're making sure the whole city runs safely. That's a lot more responsibility than I imagined. But with all this talk about skills and responsibility, I'm curious, what's a normal career path look like in this field? Do people usually stay in it, or are there ways to move up?
That is a great question. And RoleCatcher's career guide actually breaks it down really well. They have 3 main stages, entry-level, junior, senior, each with its own challenges and responsibilities. And they even included some example profiles, so you can see what a typical day looks like for each level.
Okay, let's break those stages down then. I'm really curious now. What does someone at entry level actually do?
Yeah.
Okay, let's break those stages down then. I'm really curious now. What does someone at entry level actually do?
So entry level is all about the basics. Like imagine you're in this busy dispatch center with screens everywhere, showing maps and ride requests and where all the drivers are. You're taking bookings, a lot of times from people who call. And everyone's got their own way of talking and what they need. You're putting all that info into the system, and then you got to pick the best driver for the job, like who's closest and what kind of vehicle they have. It's about making sure every ride goes smoothly, whether it's a quick trip or someone going to the airport.
So you're juggling a lot from the start, making sure the right drivers get the right passengers at the right time, and staying calm in a hectic environment.
Yeah.
So what's next? What happens when you become a junior taxi controller?
That's when you start seeing the bigger picture. It's less about individual rides and more about making the whole system work better. You're coordinating drivers so they're the most efficient, watching for traffic jams, and making sure everyone's following the rules and safety stuff. They're the ones who deal with the complicated things,
Gotcha.
like a customer having a big complaint, or a driver hitting a road closure, or if there's suddenly a ton of demand, like during a big event.
I see.
It takes some serious problem-solving skills and being able to think fast under pressure.
So it's not just reacting, it's like anticipating problems and finding creative solutions.
Exactly. There's this great example in RoleCatcher's guide about a junior controller who used traffic data to reroute drivers around a huge accident. And it meant their passengers didn't get super delayed.
Wow.
So it's about thinking ahead and using tech to your advantage.
That thinking on your feet, for sure. I can see why those customer service skills matter even more at that level. Having to deal with an angry passenger.
Yeah.
Well, also handling a traffic jam across the city, that takes a lot of patience.
For sure. And then there's the senior taxi controller level. That's where leadership comes in. And really
Ah,
knowing the industry and thinking strategically.
the big leagues. What makes senior controllers different? What do they do every day?
They're basically conducting the whole orchestra now, overseeing everything about the dispatch center.
Wow.
They set goals, look at data to see what can be improved, mentor the junior controllers, and they're always keeping up with industry trends and new technology that might change things.
So they're not just managing logistics, they're shaping the entire transportation network for their company. Sounds like they have to be ready for anything, especially with how fast technology changes in this field. Which makes me think about what we were saying before, about GPS and mobile booking apps changing the game. How have those technologies actually impacted a taxi controller's workday?
Those technologies were huge. Knowing every street became less important than being able to use data, analyze patterns, and make decisions in real time, like GPS tracking, for example. It's not just knowing where a car is right now. It's using that data to find the best route, save gas, and respond to emergencies better. And then you have the booking apps, which totally changed how people get rides. Controllers now have to handle a ton of requests and make sure passengers and drivers can connect without any problems.
So taxi controllers have become like tech wizards, multitasking with all these screens and programs. That's where a platform like RoleCatcher would be so helpful. Imagine prepping for a taxi controller interview with practice questions that are all about the tech skills you need. It seems like having those resources would be a game changer,
Uh,
especially for someone who's new to this whole thing.
Totally. And it's not even just about the tech stuff. RoleCatcher also gives you insights into the people skills, which are so important for this job. They have like a whole section on dealing with conflict, with tips on handling tough customers and calming things down.
That's huge. Because, like we've been saying, it's not just about moving cars around. It's about managing people, drivers, A&D passengers. You're always talking to people from all walks of life. And everyone's got their own thing going on.
For sure. And you can't forget about how unpredictable the job is. Imagine rush hour traffic accidents, road closures, the weather changing. It's a lot to handle, even for someone with experience.
Sounds kind of exciting and exhausting at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. It takes a special kind of person. Someone who can stay cool under pressure. A master multitasker. Someone who actually enjoys the challenge of keeping everything moving even when it feels like everything's going wrong.
It's kind of like an air traffic controller, but for the city streets instead of the sky.
I love that because in a way they're the air traffic controllers of our cities.
Yeah.
Making sure all the vehicles get where they need to go, keeping people and everything moving safely and smoothly.
And with self-driving cars becoming a thing, it makes you wonder, what happens to taxi controllers then? Will we even need them anymore?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Self-driving tech is getting better super fast, but I still think we'll always need humans to oversee things, especially in cities. It's just too complex and unpredictable. Their role might change, though, maybe less about actually controlling the vehicles and more about supervising and strategizing,
I see.
monitoring the systems, anticipating problems, and jumping in when needed.
So even with all the AI in the future,
Yeah.
we'll still need that human touch, that
Yeah.
ability to think for ourselves and handle the unexpected.
Absolutely. And that's a good takeaway from all this, no matter what your job is. Being able to adapt to change, learn new tech, and deal with tough situations, those are always going to be valuable skills.
Totally. As we wrap up our look at taxi controllers, I have to say I have a whole new appreciation for what they do. They're like the unsung heroes of transportation, working behind the scenes to keep our cities moving, even when we don't realize it.
I'm with you. And if anyone listening is curious about this job, definitely check out RoleCatcher.com. Their resources can be super helpful, whether you're just starting to think about this career or getting ready for a big interview.
It's amazing what we take for granted, like just getting from one place to another. But like we learned today, there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes. And at the center of it all are the taxi controllers,
Yeah,
navigating the urban jungle one ride at a time.
well said. It's been fun diving into this with you.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. As technology keeps changing how we get around, what role will you play?
Yeah.
Will you be a passenger, a driver, or maybe even a taxi controller? Until next time, happy travels.